Hello my darlings! Today we're going to do something a little different and talk about the cast album recording of my new favorite musical, a folk opera known as Hadestown. Yes my darlings, you heard me right. A folk opera. Originally started as a concept album first written in 2006 and retooled in 2010 by singer-songwriter Anais Mitchell, Hadestown is a folk opera retelling of the Greek myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. For those of you who don't know, and I've found that there's actually quite a few people who don't know this story, it is the story of a musician named Orpheus, whose music is so beautiful it's said to stop wars, and he falls in love with a nymph named Eurydice. On their wedding day, she's out exploring the fields around where their wedding has been held, and depending on who's telling the story, it's either a satyr or a minor god who starts chasing her, because they want to have her for themselves, and as she's running away from them, she trips and falls and gets bitten on the ankle by a poisonous snake. And she dies. And when Orpheus finds her, he is so distraught and mourns so beautifully that the fates tell him, go to the underworld and strike a deal with Hades to get her back. And so he does. He makes his way down into the underworld, and when he finally does gain an audience with Hades, he plays him a song so beautiful that Hades and his wife Persephone are so moved that they allow him what he wants, to get his wife out of the underworld. On one condition. Orpheus has to lead Eurydice out of the underworld up to the world above himself, with her falling behind him, and he can't look back at her, because if he does before they both cross the threshold into the world above, he's going to lose her forever. She has to stay in the underworld. And so they do. They make their way up out of the underworld, but as they're getting closer and closer to the threshold, Orpheus begins to doubt, and right as he crosses over, without thinking about it, he turns. She hasn't crossed yet, and Eurydice is taken back into the underworld forever. Now, imagine this story in a post-apocalyptic version of the Great Depression told through the musical stylings of folk and New Orleans jazz. And you have Hadestown. I first heard about Hadestown through my Professor Paul, who is one of my technical professors here on campus. I've mentioned him in previous videos. He was my lighting professor for my Tech 2 class last semester, and one of the assignments he had us do was lighting storyboards, where we would take a song and show Paul through storyboarding how we would light it. And he assigned a few songs from Hadestown to some of my classmates. And I heard it and I was like, oh, this is okay. I get where this is kind of going, but to hear it out of context doesn't do the show justice. So flash forward 8 months to about a week ago, when I was trying to think of a low energy thing to study for the theme of Halloween for this channel, and I decided, hey, I can listen to Hadestown on my way to class. So I decided to do that. And hearing the show in context, it's amazing. It's a fantastic, heart-wrenching, haunting, beautiful show. So before doing this video, I did a bunch of research, watched Anais Mitchell and the director Rachel Chavkin, I'm sorry, I do not know how to say her name, but she's the lady who directed Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812 for my theater geeks in my audience. And just to listen to them talk about the music and how they brought the show to life was so eye-opening, and the way they talked about their actors. Eurydice was supposed to be very fragile and yet strong at the same time, and Nabia B, who plays Eurydice, you can get that in, especially her solo, All I've Ever Known, in which she sings like, all I've ever known is to take care of myself, and now I want to take care of you. That it was so beautiful. Orpheus, it says in the casting call that he's not supposed to be like a conventionally attractive leading man, and Damon Daono loved him because he did. He let Orpheus's music speak for himself the way it should, and I think that's why they put that in the casting call. And, you know, he very much played like the frivolous artist. Like there's a song where, you know, Eurydice's like, okay, how are we gonna take care of ourselves when winter rolls around? And he's like, babe, I got this. And by the time winter rolls around, he clearly does not got this. Persephone, Amber Gray, who plays Helene in The Great Comet, beautiful, perfect, so good, because you get to see how Persephone being married to Hades, how that's worn on her over the years. And then Hades, played by Patrick Page, who played Frollo in the Hunchback of Notre Dame musical, just has this, someone described it in an article I read as a slick, oily bass that he has, his singing voice, and I was like, yes, that is the perfect description for it. And the three Fates, they're all mezzo-sopranos, and they have such tight harmonies, and the three women who played them just were so masterful in the way they sang it. Chris Sullivan, who plays Hermes, who's the narrator of the story, you got the sense of the joy and the melancholy of this entire story, and the way the story just grows and grows and grows. When Road to Hell started, I was like, yes, good, because it starts off with like this trombone, and then there's this idea of a train, and I was hooked immediately. I was like, I'm here for this. I'm ready for this. My favorite song would probably have to be Wait For Me parts 1 and 2. I like what Anais Mitchell does is she takes similar themes and peppers them throughout the show. She has chant 1 and 2, epic 1, 2, and 3, which is where Orpheus tells the story of Hades, and then eventually the story of Hades and Persephone when he's trying to get Eurydice back. That's the song he sings. And I'm like, when I heard epic part 3, I was like, okay, I can see why Hades would give Orpheus what he wants here, because he reminded him of what it was like to fall in love with his wife for the first time, and that was beautiful. Wait For Me part 2 and part 1 is just this outcry of wait for me, I'm coming for you, I love you. And in the first version, it's Orpheus basically, he never says I'm sorry, but by the way Damon Diano sings, you got that idea. It's like, wait for me, I'm sorry, I made you feel like you had to make this choice. Because in the script of Hadestown, Hades and Persephone are fighting. And Hades basically tells her, okay, if you won't appreciate what I do for you, maybe someone else in the above world will. So he goes to Eurydice and says, hey little songbird, your man's not taking care of you, but I can if you come down to Hadestown with me. And she goes with him, not realizing that Hades is a slave driver, even though Orpheus did warn her. If there's anything Orpheus does right, he does warn Eurydice who Hades is. There's this song in it's the end of Act 1, it's called Why We Build the Wall. Anais Mitchell wrote this in 2006 as a response to George Bush getting reelected. And then when she retooled it, it was about the recession. And listening to Why We Build the Wall in the wake of last year's election, I was like, lady, are you a prophet? Holy crap! Yo! So there's so much in the show, and it's so clever, and it's so smart. And it basically just took hold of my heart the way the original myth did and just refuses to let go. It's all I've listened to for the past week, pretty much. I know that was a lot. I have a lot of feelings if you could not tell. And I just need someone to talk to about this because I can't talk to Paul because I don't have any classes with him this semester, so I don't get to see him much. But honestly, y'all, it is heart-wrenching and beautiful and so unbelievably sad. And the second part of Road to Hell, which is the last song in the show, Hermes even says, I know how this story ends every time, but I always come back and sing it because I hope for a different ending. And I think that's what draws me so much personally to the story of Orpheus and Eurydice, is I am always wishing for a different ending, even though I know there's never going to be. And honestly, that might be why I love it so much. And the fact that Hadestown brings it in, it makes it tangible and real. Like, they're not archetypes anymore, they're real people. And I love that. I love that they're real people in this story. And I love that the story shifts kind of between Orpheus and Eurydice's relationship and Hades and Persephone's and parallels them. And it's just so beautiful in its sadness. So, if you ever want to cry over a Greek myth with me, come over. Please come talk to me. I would love to hear what you think if you ever give this musical a listen. It's honestly beautiful. All of Anais Mitchell's other albums are now on my list to listen to because she is a unbelievably masterful composer and musician. She's wonderful. So if there's anything else you guys want me to look at, any other kinds of musicals you'd like me to see, I would love to hear from you. And if not, don't forget to click like and subscribe. All of my social media is down in the description. I've just created a Ko-Fi page, Ko-Fi. As you can see, I'm really bad with figuring out how to pronounce things. And if not, I'll see you later, my darlings. Have a nice night.